What would you do if the smallest sign on your child's skin turned your world upside down? I thought it was just a rash. A harmless irritation, maybe from the new soap we'd tried or the summer heat rubbing against Lila's sensitive skin. My daughter, 7 years old with a laugh like wind chimes and a habit of collecting pebbles, had been scratching at her cheeks for 2 days. I'd slathered on creams, given her oatmeal baths, and told her not to worry. But that night, under the dim glow of her bedside lamp, the rash had spread angry, red, and splotchy, creeping down her neck. Her eyes, usually bright, were heavy with discomfort. My heart lurched. I scooped her up, her small body warm against mine, and rushed to the ER. The hospital was a blur of fluorescent lights and antiseptic smells. Lila clung to my hand as we sat in the waiting room, her fingers tracing the lines of my palm like she always did when nervous. I whispered stories to keep her calm, tales of brave princesses and talking foxes while my mind raced with worst-case scenarios. Allergies? An infection? Something worse? The internet had warned me about rashes signaling everything from scarlet fever to rare autoimmune diseases. I pushed the thoughts down, focusing on Lila's soft breathing. When we finally got a room, a doctor examined her quickly. He was kind but brisk, jotting notes and ordering blood tests. Likely an allergic reaction, he said, adjusting his glasses. We'll run some tests to be sure. I nodded, relief flickering, but it didn't last. Lila whimpered as the nurse drew blood, and I held her close, promising ice cream when this was over. The rash looked worse under the hospital lights, almost glowing against her pale skin. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Hours passed. Lila dozed on the bed, her small chest rising and falling. I sat beside her, scrolling through my phone for answers, when a nurse middle-aged, with kind eyes and a name tag reading, Clara, approached. "Mrs. Evans," she said softly, glancing at Lila. "Can we step outside for a moment?" My stomach dropped. I followed her into the hallway, the door clicking shut behind us. The fluorescent buzz felt louder, sharper. Clara's face was calm but serious, her hands clasped tightly. "There's something you need to know," she said, her voice low. "The rash, it's not what you think." My breath caught. I braced for words like disease or emergency. But Clara's next words were a punch I didn't see coming. "The lab results suggest the rash is a reaction to a chemical exposure. Something uncommon. We found traces of a pesticide, not something you'd encounter in everyday life." I stared at her, mind reeling. Pesticide? We lived in a quiet suburb, our biggest adventure being Lila's weekend soccer games. "That's impossible," I stammered. "She's barely been outside this week." Clara hesitated, her eyes searching mine. "Mrs. Evans, do you know anyone who might have access to such chemicals? Someone who might not have Lila's best interests at heart?" The question hung in the air, heavy and sharp. I shook my head, confusion morphing into dread. Who would hurt my daughter? My thoughts spiraled: neighbors, babysitters, even my ex-husband, who'd been distant since our divorce but never cruel. I pushed the thought away. It was absurd. Back in the room, I watched Lila sleep, her face peaceful despite the rash. Clara's words gnawed at me. I thought of our routine, the places Lila went. School, the park, her friend Emma's house. Emma's parents were sweet, always inviting Lila over for playdates. But something tugged at my memory, a faint chemical smell in their backyard last week, when I'd picked Lila up. They'd been spraying for weeds, Emma's dad had said casually. I hadn't thought much of it then. Now, it felt like a clue. The next morning, Lila was stable but still under observation. I called Emma's mom, Sarah, trying to keep my voice steady. Hey, what was that spray you used in the yard last week? I asked, forcing a laugh. Sarah paused, then said it was just a garden treatment from the hardware store. Her tone was off too quick, too defensive. My gut twisted. I hung up and called the hospital, asking Clara to dig deeper into the pesticide. She promised to check with the lab. That afternoon, an unexpected visitor arrived. A man in a worn jacket, introducing himself as Mr. Carter, a social worker from Child Protective Services. My heart sank. Clara had reported the pesticide exposure as potential neglect or abuse, standard protocol for unexplained toxins. I'm just here to ask a few questions, he said gently, but his presence felt like an accusation. I answered mechanically yes. Lila was happy. No, I didn't use chemicals at home. Yes, she spent time at friends' houses. His pen scratched across his notebook, and I felt like I was on trial. As Mr. Carter left, Clara pulled me aside again. The lab confirmed it, she said. The pesticide is a restricted compound, not sold in stores. It's used in industrial settings or by someone with access to controlled substances. My mind flashed to Emma's dad, a landscaper who worked on large estates. Could he have brought something home? I didn't want to believe it, but the pieces were falling into place. I drove to Emma's house that evening, Lila still in the hospital under Clara's care. Sarah answered the door, her smile faltering when she saw my face. Is everything okay? She asked. I didn't waste time. What did you spray in the yard, Sarah? Really? Her eyes widened, and she stammered something about organic treatments. But then Emma's dad, Tom, appeared behind her, his face pale. It was an accident, he blurted. I used a sample from work. I didn't know the kids were playing near it. Anger surged, but I kept my voice steady. Lila's in the hospital because of you. Tom's face crumpled. He explained he'd mixed a small batch of a potent pesticide for a client's estate, not realizing it was banned for residential use. Lila and Emma had been playing near the sprayer, and some must have gotten on Lila's skin. Sarah burst into tears, apologizing profusely. I wanted to scream, but their guilt was palpable. They hadn't meant harm, just carelessness. Back at the hospital, Lila was improving. The rash was fading, and her smile was back. I sat by her bed, holding her hand, grappling with what I'd learned. Tom's mistake could have been catastrophic, but Lila was okay. I reported the incident to Mr. Carter, who assured me it would be handled as an accident, not malice. Still, I couldn't shake the betrayal. Friends I'd trusted had put my daughter at risk. In the weeks that followed, Lila healed fully, her laughter filling our home again. I banned playdates at Emma's house, though I forgave Sarah and Tom in time. Their remorse was genuine, and they covered Lila's medical bills. But the experience changed me. I became hypervigilant, checking labels, researching chemicals, questioning everything. The world felt less safe, but it also taught me to trust my instincts. That night in the ER, I'd known something was wrong, even when the doctor brushed it off. Clara's quiet courage in pulling me aside had saved us from a bigger nightmare. Lila still collects pebbles, lining them up on her windowsill like tiny treasures. Each one reminds me of her resilience, of how close we came to losing her light. The truth Clara revealed wasn't just about a pesticide, it was about the fragility of trust and the strength of a mother's love. I hold Lila a little tighter now, knowing that even the smallest things, like a rash, can carry the weight of a warning.